So when Dhardo Rimpoche speaks of radiating love, he means, I think, radiating metta and karuna. So karuna means compassion, and metta simply means friend. So I guess the verb or noun of metta will be friendliness. Friendliness. So metta, I think we all know, is, from my own experience, is the intense, altruistic, delighted affection, and I mean delighted affection that we feel for a friend, a delighted affection which we feel for a friend. It's not weak, it's not insipid, it's not wishy-washy, it's not woolly, it's very direct, robust, delighted affection. It is a love in the sense that Rinpoche, I think, is asking us to radiate. He's asking us to radiate feelings of altruism and delighted affection. So in other words, we need to radiate friendliness and to develop an attitude of friendliness that is readily available to us as we go about our daily lives. Wherever we go, we can potentially radiate metta or friendliness. To the bus driver, to the shop assistant, to the ticket inspector on the train, to our neighbours, to people on the radio, to people on the news, people who were, so, you know, for example, politics has been in the news a lot, hasn't it, with Donald Trump and the election. Even though they're on screen, we can still feel, no matter what our political disposition is, we can still feel something towards people even on screen. So an excellent forum to really explore and experience metta, especially when we're starting out, is of course friendship. Friendship is an excellent forum to really put metta into practice and test out what we kind of think we know about metta, test out what we develop on the cushion. And the importance of the friendship, of course, in the Buddhist spiritual tradition is very well known in that exchange between Ananda and the Buddha. And the Buddha basically concludes that the spiritual friendship is the whole of the spiritual life. So it's really, 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 really important stuff. And of course, there's an emphasis on friendship in the Triratna, which I think is delightful. So in the Triratna, we try and, perhaps with one or two or a few, we try to practice being real, true friends, good friends to one another, in which we share delighted affection, intense delighted affection. And friendship is deep to the extent to which it incorporates the transcendental, or rather, to the extent that that friendship is incorporated into transcendental. So when we're with our friend, well, as I'll come on to later, metta is by its very nature egolessness. So we're kind of letting go of this kind of deluded separation which we have between ourselves and others. And we bask in the transcendental, and so that we can just communicate very purely with another human being. It is deep to the extent that it's altruistic. It is deep to the extent that it is egoless. Deep friendship, I would say, is the flowering of egolessness. We put aside our self-preoccupation. We put aside, or I can speak from my own experience, I put aside my self-preoccupation. I put aside my likes and dislikes. I put aside my concerns, and I connect with my friend in front of me through metta. I want them to be my primary, if you like, perspective on the interaction is I want them to be free from suffering and all afflictions, and I am prepared to act, to do what is necessary to bring that about. So metta, in my experience, is deep friendship that is not contaminated with all the different pushes and pulls of the egos. I don't like this, I don't like that. I like this, I like that. Contaminated with greed, hatred, and delusion. Metta in friendship is natural, it's unfettered, it's deeply enjoyable, and it's relaxed. You just want the best for the other person. You want them to be penetrated by the Dharma. You want them to be free from all psychological, and existential suffering. And I think from these perspectives, it's not hard to see why the wholehearted and committed practice of metta is seen as a prerequisite to awakening in the scriptures, to enlightenment. Without metta, no enlightenment. It's impossible. The scriptures also enumerate the many benefits of metta, including how the practice of metta can lead to the alleviation of our own suffering. And I'm going to read something from the great 8th century monk and poet Shantideva, who says the following: all those who suffer in the world do so because of their desire for their own happiness. All those happy in the world are so because of their desire for the happiness of others. Why say more? Observe this distinction between the fool who longs for his own advantage and the sage who acts for the advantage of others. For one who fails to exchange his own happiness for the suffering of others, Buddhahood is certainly impossible. And how could there even be happiness in cyclic existence? So Shantideva is really clear there. All those who suffer in the world do so because of their desire for their own happiness. Now, that's a point which we can debate and discuss. Do we take that literally or not? So I'd say practice metta. I do think actually in my practice, if I really focused more and more on metta, brought more mindfulness and continuity of purpose to my practice of metta in my daily life, in every action of body, speech and mind, my life and that of others will be much, much better. So I just want to say now a few words now about metta and radiation. So Dhardo Rimpoche says, radiate metta. And I think that radiation and its kind of associate light are two very important words in Buddhism and Dharma practice. The Dharma is often communicated, at least in the archetypal realm, via radiation, and the form of radiation, light. The qualities of the mind, enlightened mind, are often communicated through radiation and light. Think of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that you know. Is light and radiance part of how they communicate with you? Well, light and radiation is certainly a way which the Buddha communicates with me, and Prajna Paramitars and other Bodhisattvas. They communicate with me through, they communicate the qualities of enlightenment a lot through radiating those qualities and through light. So we speak of radiating mindfulness in the 5th precepts. With mindfulness clear and radiant, we purify our minds. In the sevenfold puja, we speak of, may they make shine the lamp of the Dharma for those wandering in the suffering and delusion. And we go on to say, with hands folded in reverence, I implore the conquerors desiring to enter nirvana, may they remain here for endless ages, so that life in this world does not grow dark. So the lamp of the Dharma and the awakened mind radiate into the universe and light it up. Metta and other qualities of enlightenment, I think, light up the universe. Even in the household in which we live, or if we go out on the street and just radiate a bit of metta, it lights up the universe for other people, making the universe more a place of beauty and inspiration. And finally, in the threefold puja, we speak of the lamp of Bodhi shining in our hearts. In other words, the lamp of Bodhi is lit in our hearts and it's radiating its wisdom and compassion. And this is the nature of metta. It radiates outwards. That's what metta does. It radiates. Indeed, the early scriptures in particular speak of radiating metta and compassion. And the simile which a lot of the early scriptures use is an image of a conch blower whose sound is heard in all 4 directions throughout the universe. And I'm going to read you now a an excerpt from a sutta. It says this: "It is just as if there were a person skilled at blowing a conch. He goes to a place where nobody has ever heard it." The sound of the conch, that is. "He climbs up a high mountain at midnight, and with all his might he blows the conch. A wonderful sound comes out of it that pervades the four directions." So this simile of the conch, the sound of the conch pervading the universe in all four directions, is a simile used for the radiation of metta. So when you're doing your metta, you can imagine being a conch blower, and the universe hears the sound of metta radiating from you. And I think it's really, really helpful to think of metta in this way. Metta is not a thing that we can possess. We cannot make it mine. We cannot make it ours. That will be an example of the ego appropriating the fruits of Buddhist practice. Metta, I think, is an energy which, when cultivated, quite naturally radiates out into the universe. Its very nature is to radiate. It cannot be contained. It is boundless, unfettered, and it radiates. And of course, we're speaking here of metta at quite a developed level. And perhaps for some of us, for some of the time, we get on with the daily task of developing metta in our everyday lives. And it can feel quite difficult and mundane, can't it, sometimes, cultivating metta. So the metta I'm talking about radiating is when we're really absorbed and we're really, really, we become metta. So even when we're lacking perspective and inspiration and metta feels a bit difficult, we can still call to mind this beautiful image of a conch blower radiating the qualities of metta into the universe. So now I just want to say a few words about metta and ethics. And I think from there is a very strong link between metta, the cultivation of metta, and the cultivation of ethical behavior, in my experience, and also in the scriptures. Because I think all unethical behavior springs from the delusion of a self that pushes things away, or that doesn't like, and pulls towards it that which it does like, to create a world that it wants and feels safe and secure in. So there's this, in other words, it's this sense of self, this self-clinging, which the Buddhist scriptures encourage us to let go of. And I think all unethical behavior springs from this very deep sense of self. And I think this deep sense of self, this self-clinging, can operate at very subtle levels, and we have to look for it in order to be aware of it. I remember when I first came across Buddhism, I thought, I don't need the metta bhavana. I'm a decent guy. I'm concerned for other people. This is just mushy, wishy-washy, woolly load of rubbish. No thanks. And also, I thought it was a bit hippie, to be honest. But then, in my years of Dharma practice, I've realised, my goodness, nothing could be further from the truth. There is a very subtle me, which cuts me off from feeling metta for other people. And it's been a real delight to just slowly rub away at that really deep me, and relax into a greater, more fuller relationship with others, well, myself, others, and the universe. And this me is kind of the antithesis of metta, because it's not driven by metta. It's driven by gross or subtle forms of greed, hatred, and delusion, which strangle the very life out of metta. So ethical training, in my experience, loosens up the sense of ego, the sense of me, and it allows metta in. It allows metta to permeate that which inhibits metta from kind of radiating, cultivating and radiating out into the universe. And it kind of letting metta in is beautiful. It just softens, it transforms little by little greed, hatred and delusion. And it brings an ease and relaxation to the mind. Two really important qualities that support metta. And the fundamental importance of ethical practice in the development of metta is made clear in the following passage, which I'm going to read you. A learned, noble disciple leaves behind unwholesome bodily deeds and develops wholesome bodily deeds, leaves behind unwholesome verbal and mental deeds and develops wholesome verbal and mental deeds. Being endowed with diligence and virtue in this way, having accomplished purity of bodily deeds and purity of verbal and mental deeds, being free from ill will and contention, discarding sloth and torpor, being without restlessness or conceit, removing doubt and overcoming arrogance with right mindfulness and right comprehension, being without bewilderment, the learned noble disciple dwells, having pervaded one direction with a mind imbued with compassion, and in the same way, the second, third and fourth directions, above and below, completely and everywhere. Being without mental shackles, resentment, ill will or contention, with a mind imbued with compassion that is supremely vast and great, boundless and well developed. The learned noble disciple dwells, having pervaded the entire world. Then the learned disciple reflects like this: formerly my mind was narrow and not well developed. Now my mind has become boundless and well developed. I love that passage. For me, it just encapsulates why I'm a Buddhist in detail, but also it's got this beautiful spirit. So that passage for me makes a very clear link between ethical practice and the ability to radiate boundless metta. And so we've got this link between purifying the mind through ethical behavior and being able to radiate metta into the universe in all four corners and above, below and to the sides. We just radiate metta. And the passage concludes by indicating that the mind, which was formerly narrow, has become boundless through the meditative absorption and radiation of metta. It's a beautiful image, isn't it? That you become absorbed into metta and quite naturally you just start to radiate it. And I'm sure that all of us here tonight have had some experience of that, of really getting absorbed into metta and feeling purified by metta and just feeling it just radiating out from us. And it's interesting, in the early scriptures, there is no reference of objects of metta. You just radiate metta out into the universe. And I think I've got time to read this other passage, which is one of my favourite in terms of metta and radiating metta. With a mind of compassion, one pervades one direction, being naturally delighted, and the second direction, the third direction, the fourth direction, and these are the directions of space, as well as the four intermediate directions above and below, in every place, completely and everywhere in the whole world, with a mind that is boundless and limited, that cannot be calculated, that is without aversion or anger and naturally at ease, being pervaded within by this mind of compassion, one has gained gladness and joy, and the mind has become straight. So again, a really powerful passage depicting this beautiful radiation of metta. And it's only later in the later scriptures that objects of metta start to appear. So we do the meditation on a friend, a neutral person, and an enemy, and so on. And that only occurred later on in the scriptures. And of course, then we start in the last stage of metta, we start to radiate it out. So we radiate metta to all corners of the universe. So I'd urge you to investigate metta in your own experience and ask the question, what inhibits you from radiating metta out into the world? Is it your ethical practice? Is it the hindrances in meditation? Are they too strong to enable you to be free and relaxed, to just radiate? And I think you'll probably come to the same conclusion that I've done, that to the extent that I can radiate metta is related to the extent that my mind is purified of an ethical behavior, and it's purified of the hindrances. And the next question for me has been, am I prepared, have I been prepared to let go of that which inhibits metta? Because that's the rub, isn't it? Are we prepared to let go of what inhibits metta? Are we prepared to let go of unethical behaviors? Are we prepared to let go of our love of the hindrances, our love of distraction, and so on? So I just want to conclude with, sorry, I've lost my timer, with the link between metta and the 6 paramitars. I found the teaching of the 6 paramitars really useful when contemplating metta and practicing metta. Of course, I think you may be familiar with the 6 paramitars. They are practiced by the aspiring bodhisattva. And paramitar means perfection. So they're sometimes called 6 perfections as well. So the aspiring bodhisattva perfects these 6 things, which are firstly generosity, secondly morality or ethics, thirdly patience, fourthly vigor, fifthly meditation, and 6th wisdom. And I'm just going to go through through these relatively quickly, just to give some examples of how of how the 6 paramitars have supported metta in my life. So firstly, generosity. I think this is obvious, really, isn't it? Metta is about connecting with another human being. And a very powerful way to connect with another human being is generosity. Generosity shows that we care about somebody else. As we've heard tonight, generosity has a huge impact on us. And as Harsha Prabhu said, we can give loads of things. We can give time, we can give energy, we can give perspective when somebody's a bit down, when somebody's a bit lost in their Dharma lives, for example. We can give perspective. We can give people company. Just sitting with people is enough sometimes. We can give them material support. We can give them money. We can give them Dharma support. We can give them Kalyana Mitrata. And generosity, I find, just lifts me out of my own self-preoccupation and allows metta to flow a bit more easy, well, at least connect with another human being on the basis of metta. And I really saw this powerfully. I experienced the power of generosity myself, because in 2012, I experienced a near fatal stroke and I was debilitated for 6 months. I was completely dependent upon other people. And the generosity was overwhelming. I found it really, really uncomfortable to receive generosity for a start. But the generosity people gave me was astounding, and it really changed my whole outlook on life, just how important generosity is in developing deep bonds with another human being. And my friendship with Satchitta, we're like chalk and cheese. We don't really get on as friends, if you know what I mean. But in terms of Dharma Buddhists, we are fantastic together. We're always looking out for each other, and he's great. He's my fiercest friend. He always pulls me up, and it's great having him in my life. I cannot get away, not that I want to, with anything. He's brilliant. And secondly, ethics. The practice of ethics has really, really helped me loosen my kind of self-preoccupation, my me, and be able to see other people and their needs a bit more clearly. And then we have patience. Patience, in my experience, is really crucial ingredient of metta, especially metta in friendship. Friends will let us down. They will. They'll let us down. We may disagree with them, sometimes quite seriously. And returning to a place of understanding can take a lot of patience, a lot of time, and a lot of skill, in my experience. But it's always worth it. To come back to a friend after a major disagreement is really beautiful. Because in coming back, there's forgiveness involved, isn't there? And forgiveness is a beautiful, beautiful human capacity as well. Yeah, just forgiveness. Just to say, the relationship with my dad has required a lot of patience and forgiveness. I was physically abused by him for many years, not sexually, but with fist and boot. And he became seriously ill, and he's been seriously ill now for quite a while. And I've just had to let go of all the if you like, the desire to protect myself from him, and all the barriers I put up to protect myself from him, and just respond to his needs. So if he needs his bum wiping, I wipe his bum. If I need to clear up his puke, I clear up his puke. And there's been a lot of forgiveness. It's like, Dad, I completely forgive you, and I'm just going to respond to this human being with patience and metta. And then there's vigor. Connecting with others takes energy. It takes energy. I would say I probably give it, and I have done for many years now, probably about 10% of my time and my energy and my vigor to metta, to acting out in terms of friendship. Without friendship, a sangha will shrivel and die. Without Kalyana Mitra, a sangha will shrivel and die. And I think it's really important that people engage vigorously with friendship. There's meditation. Well, yeah, engage with the metta bhavana fully and as wholeheartedly as you can. Don't let it, it's great, isn't it, when metta really takes off. And then there's wisdom. And I found practicing metta in the context of the Four Noble Truths really, really useful. And this is my final point. The vision of compassion, the vision of metta, sees not only the actual pain and affliction of others, which is the first noble truth, it also sees the conditions that have led to their predicament, which is the second noble truth, and the conditions that can lead out of their predicament, which is the fourth noble truth. And the motivating force of compassion or metta is the wish for others to be free of pain and affliction, which is the third noble truth. And incidentally, I think when I contemplate metta in terms of the Four Noble Truths, it makes it clear that compassion is thoroughly Buddhist, but by being combined with wisdom of the Four Noble Truths with metta. So that's 30 minutes of me just giving some my thoughts of metta. There's a lot more I could say I'll just conclude by saying, yeah, metta has become a really, really important practice to me. I can see both its samatha and its vipassana. Metta is basically insight, isn't it? In order to be able to connect with another human being fully and completely, if you like, we have to get out of the way, and that's insight. When we can relate to other people in a completely egoless way, that's insight, and it's beautiful. So thank you very much, and I'll leave it there for now.